All right, everyone. Well, welcome to the December Cyber Meetup. I know we had to push it back a week, so I hope that didn't throw you all off too bad. Nick Just, the VP of Strategic Development for TechGuard Security, will be speaking for us on the cyber risks in the new work from anywhere environment. So, as you all know, COVID has really taken a toll on a lot of workplaces and has forced a lot of us to start working remotely. And that just comes with a whole host of different kinds of risks and issues that Nick will be touching on today. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away, Nick.
Yeah,
Thanks again.
you bet. Thank you for having me, Elizabeth.
I
No,
know you've been begging me to speak for months, so I just finally fit you in.
oh well, Um, no, thanks everybody for taking your time out of your day to join us. Um, it seems a little bit small of a group, so I'd rather, I'd like this to be rather, intimate and open for discussion. Different topics you like to ask. We have a few people from TechGuard that have joined us here as well. Some from more the sales and support side, and a few also from the technical side as well. So majority of them probably are tired of hearing me talk on a daily basis. So feel free to ask any and all questions that you may like. It's open for discussion. I'd like to share that we did this. I gave this presentation about a month, maybe a little bit over a month ago, to a group of CEOs here in the St. Louis area, and they got a lot from it. We got a great response from it. So it's not overly technical, and I don't really want it to be that way. But if you guys want to, we're here to dig into the weeds if you have any questions. So please, by all means, I've seen in the past everybody uses the chat feature, which Elizabeth, I don't know if are you going to man that? I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, I can kind of moderate that if you'd
Okay.
like.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Or if any of you just want to chime in and ask any question, that's perfectly fine. So we'll stop through a few times throughout here. So so as many of you know, TechGuard, we've been around for 20 years. I'm not going to go through this, but we got our start in the government space. We do everything, from DoD to any of the cyber commands, you name it. So, and then about 5 years ago, we broke off into more of our private or commercial sector, business to business type of engagements as well. So we grew up in the space that is highly technical, that is a lot to lose if anything gets out there. So we took that and just brought it to the everyday business owner. So we really pride ourselves on that. That and our customized approach to whatever our clients need. Not everybody's business is the same, and we treat it that way. So who am I? Yep, Nick Just. I joined TechGuard about a little over a year ago, and my main function and goal here is to help build out our entire commercial division. I've been in the cybersecurity space for a little over 5 years now. Previous to this, I came from I don't want to call them a startup, but they had been around for a while, but they took on PE dollars, and we grew it from about 12 million up to about that 50 million mark, and they sold off. So, and then prior to that, I've been in the technology space for quite a few more years. So, I've been around it. Cyber is definitely way more interesting. Not necessarily easier to talk about, but a lot more interesting and very cool. Hey, Mike, nice to see you on video there. Thanks. I'm going to take us through a short commercial a short video that we presented here, and it'll really set the stage for what we're going to talk about tonight. So hopefully after this, you guys, if you guys are local, you should, if you watch any of the news, you should you know, hear somebody familiar who's doing the voiceover on this commercial as well. So here we go.
March 2020 began like any other month. The streets buzzed with regular commuters and office buildings saw workers prepping for the week ahead. Employees went about their usual routine, unaware that their office situation would soon change dramatically. Then, on March 13th, as news traveled about the coronavirus, organizations had to make swift and difficult decisions. Team, I need you all to prepare for working remotely, effective immediately. Workers across the globe packed their things, and many had to figure out home office arrangements on the fly. IT teams quickly became overwhelmed by the amount of support needed for the transition. Feeling the pressure, some IT teams took risky shortcuts to keep business productive and profitable. These shortcuts became a problem for security teams. They soon noticed holes in the network and traced it back to IT. Hey, IT, where are these network holes coming from? Oh, just a few workarounds to keep business up and running while we make these transitions. I wouldn't worry about it. Well, it's actually a problem. We can't just leave our network vulnerable like this. I'm just trying to do my job, man.
All right. So what's the takeaway from that video? And don't say that it's always IT's fault. I mean, some of it. Okay, let's not let him off the hook too easily here, right? No, but you know, everybody, we have always talked about, and we have been for the last 8 or 9 months, talking about COVID, and you know how it's really disrupting business. But from a cyber perspective, we're going to kind of dig into some of the things that we'd like for you to take away from this presentation. So how to safely execute on the work from anywhere environment, because that really is what it is. You know, you may get sick of working from home and you'll go down to Starbucks or you'll go to Panera. I know some people who, you know, they're single and they don't really have any responsibilities to children or husbands or wives, and they'll take a trip down to Florida for a couple weeks, Airbnb, and they'll work from there, right? They can still do the exact same job. So you can really, you'll see this in here. The WFA is a work from anywhere, as opposed to work from home environment. And then we're going to dive into some of the trends that we've seen. There's a lot of data that's come out, obviously with Ponemon, and then also the Verizon data breach report that comes out every year. But some of our thoughts here at TechGuard, around what those trends are going to be, how those trends are going to be impacted with the data that we're that's being gathered right now. So some pretty cool insights there. And then what are the top concerns now? What we're hearing in the industry and what people are really worried about. And then we'd like to end up with actionable or very tangible next steps to address the concerns, whether it's at your business or some way you can help, you know, safeguard your organization. So, all right, question time here. Okay, I'd like to hear some answers here. So let's get a little bit of engagement on these. So how has your company, or how has your business addressed the work from anywhere changes? So think back to March, April timeframe, and what did your company do to address some of those changes? Anyone?
My work is we've split into half shifts, so half of the people going in the morning and half the people going during the rest of the day, and everybody's working from home at some sort of point. The business has also increased their VPN capability, even though it's still super slow. But that was a big transition.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Gold star for you. Anybody else? How's everybody else's business? How have you guys addressed that?
We've gone completely online.
Okay.
If anybody wants to go in the office, they can, but everybody works from home, and it's actually going pretty smooth.
Very good. Yeah, one of the things that we did at TechGuard was we originally went to everybody working from home. And then we had some folks, even some folks on the call here that, are very, very active outside of being at home or even in the office. They are very just active individuals, like being outside and everything. But they were actually requesting if we can come back to the office. We have in our commercial division, we have a very collaborative environment. So sometimes it's not difficult. You can still do the same and have the same interactions over Teams or Zoom or Skype or you name it. It's just sitting in the same room with somebody or having a face-to-face conversation. It can, is sometimes more effective than over the different technologies that we have at our disposal. So, we did. People started asking about it, so we brought people back in. I don't know when it was, like July, August, probably something like that. And then as things started to, increase just in the last couple of months, we actually switched to what we call the black and gold schedule as far as coming to the office. So 1 week we have half the team come in, and the other half works from home, and then we just flip it. So every other week, everybody's working from home, except for just a few of us anyway. So anybody else want to share what their business is doing? No? Mike, I know you, the second point here, you kind of hit on this, which is how well was your business prepared to make this change, just kind of at when the mass exodus happened? You talked about VPN, right? I mean, were you guys seeing some issues with, VPN capacity?
Oh yeah, it was maxed. We had a denial of service on our stuff because the VPN capabilities weren't up to par with everyone having to work from home.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about that, to be honest with you, and then and we'll probably touch on it later. Well, I know we'll touch on it later. It's in the presentation, but many of the companies, when that started happening, they were trying to, purchase more capacity, if you will, and it just became just a huge issue. There was such a rush to get that up and running that it created issues just all around that for many businesses. So, anybody else want to share if you think how well your business was prepared for this? Craig, how'd you guys do?
I was just going to say, I'll touch on the VPN part. We were much like you guys. We were very office prominent. I mean, everybody was kind of expected to work from the office, and we oversized our VPN in the beginning. So, kind of kudos to the team on that. By doing that, it was less of a burden by everybody working from home.
Yeah, I think we were pretty lucky with that as well. We've got a very large group of our organization in the government side and in different offices out on the East Coast. So I would say we didn't have much of an issue with that, but that's just because the state of our business, like you said, Craig, I mean, you guys were already oversized on it, so it really wasn't that big of an issue. So, okay. Are there issues that you guys feel like you're still facing? Right. Are there concerns or any other things that you guys are facing. And I asked this question because I want you to think about it in this sense. We're so far into this that I think everybody's used to working from home, or anywhere. Everybody's used to doing that. I think the businesses have caught up. Your business has probably caught up to what the critical needs are. But think about the flip side. Do you think you will be called back into the office at some point? And what needs to be addressed there? What changes? Because we've already shifted or changed our business models to address people that can work anywhere. If they do call you, or if you are calling your employees back into the office, what issues do you need to pay attention to then? So think about either one of those, and let's share them and talk about them really quick.
I think you nailed it on the head. Is we've already shifted to that, and with what my company does, we are discount grocery. Our team has moved to a point where we are trusting everybody that we are going, and we are a cloud first company, and not only cloud first, cloud only. So everything that we're doing is we're trying to get away from hardware into the office. So I could do my job from Hawaii. I could do it from St. Louis, wherever I need to do it from. So it's nice that they're doing that, and there's touch points. I mean, that's missing the human factor. I guess if you want to put it to that point, the human factor is probably the only part that I'm struggling with personally. Not having the camaraderie of being in the office, but these Zoom calls are helping that, but it's not the it's not the same of the water cooler conversations.
No, and that's, like you said, the water cooler conversations. Let's be honest. Sometimes they're, you get stuck in conversations you don't want to be in, and it's taken away from you getting your stuff done. But at the same time, it's nice just to have that face-to-face interaction, because there's a lot of things. Is just as you go to the refrigerator, you go somewhere to grab a glass of water or get your coffee, and I need to stop and talk to so-and-so. And you're conducting business just without even thinking about it, right? So what about, and at the end here, we're going to talk about, really, really tangible, actionable steps from TechGuard's view on what you can do to address some of these concerns that we'll talk about throughout this presentation. So some good takeaways here for any and all businesses. All right, you've probably heard us present a few different times throughout if you're a longtime listener of Cyber Meetup. So I'll get into this. I'm not going to belabor the point, but it's worth noting that back in March and April when this hit, we always knew that phishing was probably and will remain, maybe not remain, but it's always been one of the very top attack vectors for attackers. And they're going to capitalize on any and all areas in which they can. So one of the statistics I want to bring up here is since March 1st of 2020, there's been a 667% increase in phishing attacks. Now, okay, let me preface it by this. I'll use this as an example. Okay. Does anybody on the call here know exactly why 99.9% of shark attacks happen in shallow waters? Nobody? Because that's where all the people are, right? So take a grain of salt here, right? This statistic doesn't mean that all phishing just skyrocketed. It really has to do with coronavirus specific or COVID specific phishing attacks, right? So prior to COVID, nobody was going to be sending out, a phishing attack around COVID. So, keep that in the back of your mind. When you see all these statistics and everything, just, think about it for a little bit. But it is worth noting that, it's out there. They're capitalizing on every angle that they possibly can. and they're not above that by any means. So first of all, who's susceptible to these? Anybody. I think the ones that, I guess it really pertains, and it really depends on what kind of security culture you guys have or you created at your inside the organization. If it's not top of mind for you, then you're going to see it from time to time, but they're probably going to be more than likely going after the execs. Although a lot of times they'll take off the low-hanging fruit. They'll see somebody as an intern working at the business, maybe within their first couple months, and they'll attack them. And while they shouldn't be able to get very far, it's still a way into the organization, right? So everybody's susceptible. What is susceptible? Think about every different device or asset that you have access to in which you can conduct business on. We all have smartphones, probably, that you can get your emails on. You've got your laptop. You may have a tablet that your company provides you. You name it. So it's not just one particular area that they're paying attention to. Anything connected that you can get access to your business information is susceptible. And then why do these things work, right? I think we've all probably seen or heard of examples in which a phishing attempt has come across. So too good to be true. There's a sense of urgency. Hey, you have to reset your password so you can get into your Office 365 or your Outlook email. Do it now before it's locked out. You go on automatically because, oh my gosh, if you didn't live with, if you couldn't get to your email one day, your entire business would shut down, right? I mean, that would almost, for some of us, that might actually be a dream come true. But for most people, it's, it's the end of business. So, but they always create that sense of urgency, and they're highly targeted, highly sophisticated. Okay, so think about that whenever you get something in in email. I can tell you this one story. It was Christmas Eve 3 years ago, and it was 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. We had just put the kids to bed, and we're putting out the gifts for Santa. And oh my gosh, spoiler alert, Santa's not real. But we were putting out all the gifts, and I think I was putting together a little bicycle for a 3-year-old time. And I get an email from our COO, and the email, not kidding you, came from his name, and it said the exec team bonus structure, or bonuses for end of year. And in the email, the body of the email, it said, everybody take a look at your end of year bonuses and get back to me if you see any issues with it. Thanks, and then his name. And I was like, okay, first of all, I'm not a C-level, and I know I shouldn't have access to this email, but I'm like, holy cow. I want to take the risk, and I just want to see if there's anything in here that I can, if it's real, I just want to see it. That's all. I just want to see it. But they hit at a perfect time, right? It came through when nobody else was doing business, and it came from the person that it should be coming from. Any and all of that information. So again, highly targeted. Just pay attention to it. The other thing to note here is if you don't have a process around how to check with your IT team or your security team, if you have one, your InfoSec team, make sure you're bringing that up in discussions. I know here at TechGuard we have a process in place where we email spam risk. It's just a DL. A couple of our cyber guys and one of our IT guys can check it really quick, and they're really quick about getting back to us as well. At a previous company, we just sent it to, is it legit? I mean, really kind of, easy to remember, DL to where you guys can, you can send that. So think about the process around it as well. If you don't have one, highly recommend, that you guys put one in place. So we always practice what we preach, but the simplicity of an attack, this is something that we did, I'll show you here, that our CEO did, and during the midst of everything that was going on here. So you'll notice that it was done on March 18th, during during the middle of the day. And it's just an internal simulation that we did on all of our employees here. So a couple things to pay attention to. Yes, we practice what we preach, but we need to pay attention. So if you'll notice here, Carla Stone at TechGuard is spelled wrong. And that's also not the, I guess the cadence or what have you. It's first dot last at TechGuard Security that we use here. Very easy one to pay attention to is in the name there. Some other things that are a little bit more difficult to note is kind of the verbiage in the email itself or the tone of the email. So for example, in here, TechGuard family, Carla never does, and she never will call us her TechGuard family. It's just not what she does, right? She would call us Tech Guardians or something of that nature. Usually to me, she'd be like, "Hey, idiot." That's how she would probably start the email. I'm joking, right? No laughs. Okay. And then we have a formalized signature block that we have to use inside the organization. So just some quick, easy things that you can take away from simulation that we have done here internally. But something easy that you can do is simulate something like this to your organization. I'll get into some phishing stats later on and why it's important. But I want to talk next about what really is at risk or what are the consequences, okay? So how often, raise a hand or just take yourself off mute and say yes or something. How many times have you guys seen, different statistics around the cost or what the average data breach can cost the company? Yes, no, maybe. I'm sure we all have, don't we, in some report that you see. One of the things to note here, and this is probably a little bit more, I don't want to go over and say that this is valid or not. It doesn't really matter to me. But one of the things I want to point out here isn't necessarily that the average breach is 3.92 million, right? I think the average is right around $150 per record. But it's good to note that and define what an actual record is inside your organization. So when we talk about a record, think about any piece of identifiable information about any one of not only your employees, but any one of your vendors or their employees, or any one of your employees, dependents, wife, children, think about HR for benefits and those type of things. So my social security number could be a record. My home address, any one of my children's information, especially when we're talking about benefits in HR, is a single record. So, talk about it from a finance perspective, right? How many different what identifiable information do you have to do business with other companies on a daily basis or weekly basis or what have you, okay? So it's good to just understand what an actual record really is and what it means. And then you can kind of figure out, okay, for yourself, get an idea for what actually is at risk. And maybe that'll be a way for you to really drive home, the importance of being proactive or taking those preventative steps. That's going to kind of be the underlying tone of what we're talking about here. So now that we've covered those two things, phishing, the statistics there, and then what really is at risk at the organizational level is, okay, how do we improve this stuff? What can you do to improve the overall results of your organization? First of all, it's phish your employees regularly. It doesn't have to be something highly expensive. You don't need something, a crazy piece of software out there that automatically does it. Most training, cyber awareness training providers can do it. Maybe some of the local IT staff that you guys have can help put something together and send it out. But it's just doing it on a regular cadence can really have profound effects on the click rate or the open rate. So if you haven't done it in a while, or if your company hasn't done it for a while, start out. We typically recommend that you do it at least on a quarterly basis, right? At the very least, quarterly. Only 4 times a year, not a ton of lifting there. What we would highly recommend is shorten that time frame. Do it monthly. Okay. With doing it monthly, you're going to hit it enough throughout the year that it's going to become more of a conscious effort, and more repetition is going to drive really the right behavior here. So in the first simulation, we typically see, and this is really our own data here, but we typically see a 20% click rate. Okay. We have seen upwards of 50%, which is extremely scary. There's one organization that is very large that we saw about a 42% click rate, and they had a couple thousand employees, which I would say scared probably the crap out of them, to be honest with you. But something to note here, which is if you take it a step further, the reason I say shorten the time frame and do it monthly is because if you do it quarterly or don't do it enough throughout the year, the additional statistic, which I pulled from Know before in one of their industry papers that they put out, was if you don't do the phishing enough throughout the year, of those 20% that clicked the first time, 67% of those that did click the first time will continue to click thereafter. So it doesn't just stop at that 20% and end. They're going to continue. So that's why we need to continue and shorten that time frame in between the simulations. So in the second one, there's not a big increase in or improvement, I guess, if you will, in the click rate. You'll see it drop a little bit to just 19%. In the third one, again, not a huge, but we're starting to get better on the improvements. Drops to 13%. But by the fourth one that you do, again, you're starting to create that consciousness around, okay, stop, hold on for a second. Let's really think about what is being asked here. Is it really coming from the person it needs to? And it's not, is it really something for them to ask me to do or whatever, right? By the fifth one, I mean, the goal should be to get down to 0. Is that realistic? No, it's not. I mean, you're always going to have somebody or some people. So, but I would say a good goal to set for the organization or for a particular department, because these can be targeted at different department levels, and you can get as highly sophisticated as you want to, really, is to get down below that 2%, hopefully underneath that 1% click rate. Okay. How often hey, Mike, not to call you out here, but do you guys do regular phishing attacks or simulations inside the organization?
No.
Not usually. Okay. And Craig, I know you spoke up earlier. I don't know if you're still on.
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, we actually do it monthly. We have a monthly phishing campaign that goes out, and in fact just came through yesterday.
Nice. How do you know your results? Do they post those results?
I did, and I haven't seen it in a couple months, but I want to say we're somewhere around 5%. I'm not positive on that one. We've had some recent addition. It's not even turnover. It's a recent addition into the team. So it kind of went up a little bit, but in the past we've had as low as less than 2.
Very good. I'm just checking the roster to see if there's anybody else I can call out. I don't really want to be that big of a jerk this evening, so. But I see there's plenty of you guys out there. If you want to chime in, by all means, take yourself off mute, jump in here. Anybody else? No? All right. So the main thing here is just continuous training plus the regular simulations is really going to drive that overall improvement. So Craig, you'd mentioned you guys do it monthly. By all means, that's really what we recommend as an industry standard for what we do, how we do it. And it, like I said, it doesn't have to be, highly sophisticated. You're just trying to create that awareness throughout the culture inside the organization for people to stop and take note for just a second. So any other questions around phishing before we move on? Any questions in general? Not around phishing? Nope. Okay. Another trend.
Oh, sorry, Nick.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have a question. I don't know. Someone said, can someone describe a very basic attack, like an IP grabber that lets you know who clicked on something they shouldn't? How do you know if it succeeds? I don't know if you'd be able to answer that, or if like Grant might be better, or maybe Nate.
Nate or Grant, you guys want to try and take that one? So what was the question again? An IP grabber that lets you know who?
It's in the chat.
Sorry,
Oh.
I was kind of on something else here. Is it just basically like something that notifies if there was a connection that was made? Is that kind of?
So it
So I think we use the tool we use, right, will allow us to look at the IP address that the customer's coming from. It's an online tool, and it does provide some intelligence around what the customer does when they click on the email, but I'm honestly not sure how deep it goes. Is that kind of the question you're asking?
It's basically like a URL that if you click on it, it has a cookie attached to it, and that cookie is basically attached to an email address. So if you're like sending out an email, you're sending out kind of a specific URL that has that cookie, and then it grabs information from that user to tell you if, they've actually opened up the email. But then again, you can actually kind of point that URL to, so Cali, I guess it would be like,
So I saw you mentioned beef. Is that right?
Yeah, it looks like it.
In the chat, we don't use beef. We have used beef in the past.
I use Metasploit a lot. That has actually a really good way of kind of sending out, emails, and then you can actually open up a reverse shell like through Metasploit to kind of open that up.
Very good. So Brian, I think it was Brian who asked that. Yeah, Brian, I hope that answered your question. Let us know if it didn't. We can always come back to that too. So good question though. Some other concerns in the abrupt work from home movement was the gap in critical systems that were opened up. This graph and information on this slide, however, this is from the Verizon data breach report that came out earlier this year. And one of the things to take note of here is that misconfiguration of systems was on the rise already. So the Verizon data breach investigation report came out mid-2020, but the data that it used was from 2019. So this is prior to COVID and coronavirus, coming about. All right. So if you look at this blue, line on the graph here, misconfiguration was already on the rise. Think about what businesses had to do in order to move all of their employees to a remote or a work from anywhere environment and keep them productive to keep the business profitable. Okay. What leniencies or what did they not take take into account from a security perspective in order to just get people to be able to work from home that weren't used to it? What holes in the network did they open up just for this? And if they did that, have they gone back, or has your company or your team, whoever it is, have you gone back to correct any of those holes or plug any of those gaps that you originally, or that your organization originally opened up? Okay. So systems were not set up properly to begin with. And I'm guessing we've had a couple discussions around this on what we can predict this is going to be. I'm not going to throw anything out there to anybody, but I want to set the stage for it's going to probably go up. I'll be very honest with you. And it's probably going to take a pretty decent jump. Okay. Why are these increasing is not quite as I guess as important as much as the data from 2019. Craig, you had mentioned earlier that your company was moving to the cloud. You guys are all cloud-based, I think, for this point in time, and moving forward. A lot of IT, in-house IT infrastructure teams are used to having some, with the change over to the cloud. It's a big change. They may not be up to speed with all the different benchmarks that are out there from other, how to deploy a server or you name it in the cloud, and they're just not setting them up accurately. And it's not because they don't want to. It probably is because they don't necessarily know. So I'm not blaming it on anybody, but what I'm saying is, pay attention to, or bring it up to your organization. It's very critical that that you pay attention to what how you're setting up the organization, the different systems when you're making changes throughout your infrastructure. Okay.
Yeah, we actually came across that we had early people that were with the company that were setting them up that weren't used to that. And something that I have brought to the table when I used to do it was I'm bringing CIS benchmarks to all of it. Yeah. And then, we're attacking each technology as its own, but we have a group of developers that might be working in Kubernetes that, they need to get to the CIS benchmarks for Kubernetes, server 2019s, desktops, things like that. And we're pulling these reports down for them, and then we're deploying them to them. And the nice thing about it is if you subscribe fairly inexpensively to CIS benchmarks, you can actually get golden images or even GPOs to push things out to your Windows environment, or golden images to your non-Windows environments.
Yes, very good. We'll talk a little bit. I may ask you, Craig, I'm assuming that was you, right?
That was, yes.
Okay. It'd be interesting if you can chime in later when we talk kind of about patch management and different things. I'll touch on that. But another thing to note here with COVID is, even the best organizations who had all the planning in the world really weren't prepared for COVID, or even they struggled a bit when it came to changes and whatnot around COVID. So I want to talk a little bit about planning here for just a second. So BCP, DR, and incident, IR planning is highly important. Failing to plan is planning to fail, if you will, if any of you guys were in sports as a young one. But business continuity planning, challenges just around the office, it really comes down to anything that takes your business away from the everyday environment that it's used to performing in, right? And then you add in the pandemic, the COVID and everything, that really changed the kind of the landscape for many people who, are used to being in the office and conducting business out of the office. It really changed quite a bit. Pandemic planning should be a part of your business continuity plan. We haven't really, many of the companies we talked to didn't even know really that this was a thing, I would say, because it's never really hit at least all that hard. So nobody's really had to plan for it. But some of the larger organizations, the multinational, the international companies, have had some of these in place, and they have for quite some time. And it is a best practice, but something to think about in your BCP. And then, general lacking of policies that are in place or that you just have as part of your business continuity plan. Disaster recovery, I mean, I'm not going to touch on every single one of these, but configuration and patch management is really something to think about, especially if you're used to being in an office setting or in a a network setting. How are you going to deploy all those patches to now a completely remote workforce that has all these different remote assets, things like that. And then the incident response planning as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a true incident in order to have a plan based around it, which COVID kind of showed us exactly what that means, right? All the sensitive data that's out there on employees' assets is now at greater risk because of our distributed workforce or our work from anywhere environment. I'll give you a real world example here. The people around the office here are tired of hearing me bellyache about it. I went out. I keep coming into the office usually every day, and I think it was last Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember which day it was. It was early in the morning. Grabbed my work bag, a water, and I took it out to my car. Started my car. I was waiting for my coffee to finish in the house. Started up my car. Went inside for about 2 minutes or so. Not even that. Probably a minute. And grabbed my coffee, threw some creamer in it, and I went back out, out in the driveway, and all of a sudden my car wasn't there. Oh my gosh, my car was stolen, right? But more importantly, oh my gosh, all my work, my laptop, any and all of my my information, anything that I needed to actually do my job was completely gone at this point. And luckily, I work for a fantastic company who has a lot of great people that work for us. And within probably 5 minutes, I was getting texts from, our IT guy, a couple of our cyber, our cyber guys that they had locked down and shut down everything on my computer. It was basically of no use, even if they were able to get into it. But some other things to think about, we have a badge. We have to badge into our office every day. I had to make a call I called our CEO, but our CEO had to make a call to our FSO, our facility security officer, to have my badge turned off, right? Those type of things. So think about that whenever you're putting together different plans for your organization. So, Elizabeth, how are we doing on time? I feel like I've been talking forever here.
You're totally fine. We typically go till 8 if there's any questions. So,
well, planning. So another thing, just think about your different plans that you guys have in place, your BCP, disaster recovery, and your incident response plans. If you don't have anything in place right now, Nate, Grant, I don't know if you guys want to offer up, but I know that there's some good plan templates that can get you started. However, just know that business, any and all of these are typically need to be highly customized for your business and for your company in order for them to be effective. And then the other piece around this is make sure you're testing it. Make sure you're running through real world examples of this and pulling in people. The other thing too on the incident response that we didn't really even hit on was even the companies that had incident response plans in place, or any of these really, weren't, I mean, if they had tested it, you could be doing all the right things, but even if you had tested these over the years, all of a sudden, most of the time when you're testing these, you're all in a location, a singular location at the office where the critical data is. Now you're having to do the same thing when every single person is distributed in a different, work from anywhere environment, right? So they're not used to, doing that from, everybody spread out. So there's many different factors at play here, but highly customized for your organization in order to make them effective. Okay. Any questions so far, or as of yet? I know there's a couple other people that have been on the phone and haven't really talked up, so speak up, guys. No? Okay. We'll keep going here. I know we're getting close on time anyway. We got to save time for the end for a quick beer. All right. Top concerns. There's still concerns out there for many companies. Training your employees, obviously, concern number one. Planning. Make sure you're going through and you've got some plan in place. Make sure you're testing it as well. It's not just having the plan to have it. Go through and test it. Walk through the steps that you need to. It's only going to set you up for better results when something does happen. Okay. The controls themselves, I'm not really going to go into these. VPN security policies and procedures overall. Make sure that you have change management procedures in place. Make sure you have, if you don't have a framework that your industry follows, if you will, there's always the CIS, top 20 controls out there. That's a great one to use just to get some of those in place. I really won't touch on, what's in the news, but MFA, a lot of times businesses, many applications have multi-factor authentication built in. It's just organizations don't have them turned on simply because it's inconvenient for the employees, right? It just is. But by all means, turn those on, especially now with people working from anywhere. Zero trust, I'm really not going to touch too much on this, but ultimately all that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Grant or Nate, on this, but it's really just taking all of the security controls that typically would live at the network or the office or whatever, and just pushing them down to the actual asset or the actual endpoint. So something to look at. I would say it's probably, where our industry is going, but something to look at. And then what about your vendors and suppliers, everybody you do business with? If you are holding yourself accountable to do the training, do the planning, put all these policies and procedures in place, and do what's right for your business, why should you not ask the same thing of your vendors or your suppliers or anybody that you do business with? There's that supply chain risk management that you can utilize to, there's questionnaires out there, templates of those, but it's all right and it's okay to ask your vendors and suppliers to at least go to the same lengths or at least fill out a questionnaire if they're going to do business with you. If you're taking the if you're making the effort to really safeguard your organization, right? Top 4 ways to lower risk. We've already pretty much touched on all of these, but security awareness or user awareness training and phishing. There's plenty of them that are out there for you. I would highly suggest looking at some of those platforms that are out there. Usually they're inexpensive for what they provide to you as an organizational benefit. And they usually do not take that much time for all of your employees to go through It's all comes back to that creating that security awareness culture in the organization, or at least in your department, right? Start there with what you can control. The incident response plans, or any of the plan, right? Put it in place, test it, update it regularly, review it, prepare for what is unexpected. I'm not going to hit too much on that because we have with COVID and everything. I think that's been realized this year more than anything else. And then IT controls assessments. The reason I put this in here is, are all of your policies, procedures documented? Are they up to date? And are they accurate, right? The other piece that I touched on just a little bit ago is the change management piece of that. Anytime you make a change, are you following those change management procedures, or do you need to update those, right? One of the ways to test a couple of these things is through ongoing vulnerabilities, scanning, or vulnerability management, if you will. Ideally, it would be after every single change that you make within the infrastructure, but changes happen, can happen daily, weekly, you name it. So I would suggest, at least monthly, doing those vulnerability scans, both sides, internal and external as well. Don't forget about that. There's two different sides there. Okay. Any questions on lowering organizational risk here and what you can do? Remember, these are proactive, preventative measures you can take to help safeguard the organization. Okay. I'm not really going to touch on what can you do. These are typical everyday things, but I know, Elizabeth, you'll probably put this out on the Cyber Meetup site and blog to send out to everybody. But it's good to kind of read through these and just know. Okay. And then we'll end with questions or comments, concerns, you name it. Who has something? Do we have any? Let me check the chat here. Do we have anything? Whoa.
Nothing yet.
Okay.
They just started talking about
Oh.
technical stuff. They didn't have any questions for you yet, but if
Okay.
anybody does, feel free. You can type it in the chat, or you can just shout it out. Yeah, just be totally candid. We're all friends here.
Jeff, any questions? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know we had some people who came on a little later. If there's anything you were wondering about.
I don't know if do we have any other questions out there? Yep. No questions. All right. In that case, anybody else from TechGuard? I know we got a few people on. Nate, Grant, Elizabeth. Anybody else? Shannon, I thought you were out there. Nicole. Do you guys have anything else to add on here, or any final thoughts before we have Elizabeth sign us off for the evening?
No, I'm good. Yeah, thanks for doing this, Nick.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Elizabeth, over to you to closing remarks. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
We did have another question in the chat. Someone asked, well, Joe asked if we do any government work in the STL area as well. I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. It's only on one particular contract, however. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty much mostly commercial, so that wouldn't be my area. But yeah, hope that answers your question, Joe. If nobody has anything else, thanks again, Nick, for volunteering to speak for us this month.
You bet.
Yeah, it was a really awesome presentation. That video was just fantastic. I don't even know where you got that. It's really great.
Bonus questions, bonus points, or what did they call it? Oh, extra credit. Did anybody catch who the voiceover was on our video? Come on. Next time we do an in-person cyber meetup, I'll buy you a beer.
Who watches the news?
I have
That was
a,
Andy. Oh, what's his last name?
Yes. Who is this?
What is his last name? I should know it.
Andy Banker. You're exactly right.
That's
Is
it.
that Donald?
Yep.
well, no,
Nope.
I was just,
Oh,
I was a
Jeremy.
little late. I missed the video. Is there, is
Oh.
that going to be posted on the meetup notes later?
Yep. Yep.
'Cause I'd like to see that.
Yeah, we record these, and you'll be able to see it. I'll have it posted tomorrow, hopefully, probably by the afternoon.
Yeah. So yeah, we had our local celebrity here do our voiceover for our video. So kudos to him. But yeah, it was Andy Banker. So
Yeah, super cool. So, like usual, I will have the notes posted on the meetup site tomorrow. So be on the lookout for those if you're interested in getting a recap or if you missed it. And thanks everyone for joining us. It's awesome to have you all here. I'm really glad that we can still continue to do this even with all the COVID craziness going on. Like I always say, hopefully soon we can get back together in person again, but we'll see. Once again, thank you, Nick. You were a great presenter. I expected nothing less.
I'm pretty sure you're paid to say that. So have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
See you all later.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.